In the grand halls of Buckingham Palace, two royal siblings, Charles and Anne, grew up under the watchful eyes of the British public and the world. Born just 2 years apart, they were close companions in a life of privilege, duty, and constant scrutiny. While Charles was the heir to the throne, Anne was known for her strong-willed nature, a characteristic that would define much of her life. Despite the pressures of their roles, Charles and Anne shared a unique bond, one built on mutual respect and a deep understanding of their responsibilities as members of the royal family. King Charles was born on the 14th of November 1948 in Buckingham Palace, London, and is now the King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland from September 8, 2022, during the reign of his maternal grandfather, King George VI, and became heir apparent when his mother, Queen Elizabeth, acceded to the throne in 1952.
Well, he was a very studious child. I mean, he was somebody who was quite unlike Prince Philip, who was a much more boisterous character. He was unlike his mother as well. His mother was somebody who was very serious from a very young age, and Charles, I think, inherited this seriousness, but what he had, which she didn't have, was a real interest in learning and a real interest in books and things like that.
Well, Queen Elizabeth was a very dutiful mother, and if you think that she became Queen aged 25, she had, you know, Prince Charles was, I think, he was 4, nearly, and Princess Anne was only, she was born in 1950, so she was only just 3 when the Queen was crowned. So basically her children were taken away from her. She just didn't have time to be with them. So she would see them in the morning, you know, for 15 minutes, and she would see them at night for half an hour. But again, you have to judge it by the mores of the time. That was how aristocratic families worked.
When the coronation took place in 1953, it was quite interesting because Charles was obviously just about old enough to be at the coronation and to have an understanding of what was going on in a way that none of his siblings who are currently born did. And I suspect that for a very young boy, it would have been an overwhelming experience. I mean, the pageantry, the noise, the sheer number of people. But there would also have been, probably by then, at the back of his mind, this thought percolating about, it's going to be me one day, this is all going to happen for me.
It was a 3-hour ceremony. It was, everybody recalls, the coldest June day that had ever happened. And it was pouring with rain. And people, you know, there was, if you go back, this is 1953, so the ceremony itself was very, very serious and very religious and very dramatic.
And it's impossible to speculate exactly how he would have felt because we have no record of his thoughts of a time, and I doubt very much he remembers exactly how it was. But certainly, it must have been a sense of absolutely terrifying pressure being put on you as a young child to see all this at such a young age and to think, one day, unless something horrible happens or unexpected, this will all be for me as well. Well, obviously he was the eldest sibling of 4, and I think it's fair to say that because he was the first sibling, and because he was going to be Prince of Wales and then eventually he was going to become king, there was always a sense that he was the one who was given the most attention and the most focus. So I think that this was something that he, on the one hand, he thrived on, because who wouldn't thrive in a situation where you're always told that you're the most important one? Well, Charles was sent to public school in Scotland at Gordonston, which is an infamously tough school where essentially the attitude is spare the rod and spoil the child. It made Charles embittered, it made him, I think, somebody quite closed in terms of his emotions because he had to keep so much to himself.
And he actually thought that Gordonston would be good for Charles because it was up in the north of Scotland, away from the press. It was, you know, it was meant to be wonderful outdoor life, and you know, great emphasis was placed upon the training of the mind as well as the training of the brain. And Philip thought it would be perfect. I think the Queen and the Queen Mother probably thought that he would be, being such a sensitive young man, he probably would have been better to go to Eton. Prince Philip wanted his son to be an image of himself. He wanted him to be macho, and he wanted him to be sporty, and he wanted him to have a sort of very strong personality. Well, Charles wasn't like that at all. He was very timid. He wasn't particularly sporty. He was a little awkward, and he wasn't really the son that Philip hoped he'd have. So as Charles grew, their relationship just didn't work.
It was quite common before Charles for monarchs to go up to Oxford or Cambridge. I mean, Edward VIII, when he was Prince of Wales, went to Magdalen College, Oxford, but most people went to university simply to acquire kind of a tick box, whereas Charles actually went to Cambridge with the intention of studying. He was the first member of the royal family to have actually gone to university with the intention of doing a 3-year course and having a degree. But he had a very good time at Cambridge, because I think after the privations of prep school and boarding school, he found people he was comfortable with, he found an academic environment that he enjoyed, and he managed to act a lot as well. So I think you can say that Cambridge was in many respects the making of Prince Charles, and then of course when he became King Charles, he's still been somebody who's had very strong links to his old university, and he got a 2-2 in history in the end, which actually for somebody who came from a non-academic background was quite an achievement.
I'm letting out a little slack now, yes, taking up the strain. This is most exciting, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything quite like it before. I think I got quite a large one here. It's very, very large indeed.
Challenges have also arisen from the media reporting, focused on the ups and downs of Charles's personal and romantic life. His days as the most eligible bachelor prince saw great speculation about his future wife. The eventual marriage to Lady Diana Spencer was just the fairy tale the world had been waiting for, a dashing prince with his blushing bride. Although Charles had been Prince of Wales for some years, it wasn't until the 1st of July 1969 that the Queen officially invested in him. Before the ceremony, Charles had left Cambridge University to spend a term at the University College of Wales at Aberystwyth. During his tenure in Wales, he spent his time learning about Welsh history and culture and learning to speak the language. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, is one of the hardest-working members of the British royal family. Known for her no-nonsense attitude, the princess has a very well-deserved reputation for hard work, commitment to her work, and charitable causes. Her brother's role was predestined, but hers was not, and she has spent many decades finding that role and redefining the meaning in her work. Although Princess Anne plays a vital part in the most famous family in the world, her story is less often told in the media. She may be the most hard-working member of the British royal family, but she isn't necessarily the most well-known. In recent years, however, a wave of popularity for the princess has developed following the Netflix series The Crown airing. Erin Doherty, who plays the princess, revealed her enthusiastic and genuine appreciation and fascination for Princess Anne and her work.
Has it changed your perceptions of the royals, your perception of Princess Anne?
I mean, honestly, I didn't really know anything about her, so I kind of got the call and I was like, okay, cool. And then I kind of went away and was like, oh wow, she's a real deal. She's this kind of royal rock star.
I love her. I think she's brilliant. I just think she's honest, and she just has no time for. She just doesn't want to waste any time like lying or pretending that she feels a certain way, especially when I think there's such a kind of politeness that you have to abide by within her family that I think when it comes to her personal life, she's so strictly the opposite because she has no time for it, which is brilliant. I just think she's great.
Princess Anne is the only daughter of the Queen and Prince Philip, born only a couple of years after her brother Prince Charles on the 15th of August 1950. As her two younger brothers, Princes Andrew and Edward, were born several years later, Charles and Anne shared a close bond growing up. At that time, the royal family's life was blessed, with summer and Christmas holidays spent in Balmoral and Sandringham, laying the foundations for Princess Anne's love of horseback riding. Many idyllic times were spent playing with her older brother and roaming free in the country estates. The princess had a secure and happy childhood. Princess Anne is said to have had an incredibly close emotional bond with her father, Prince Philip. He admired her for her challenging and resilient nature. Some reporters have even said Princess Anne was Philip's favourite son. They had a lot in common, similar in their pragmatic approach to life and their strength of character, whilst not being adverse to expressing a strong opinion. Charles and Anne shared a governess, Catherine Peebles, for their early education. Still, by 1963, Anne was keen to move on to the outside world, to a boarding school, and she was enrolled at Benenden School, a historic house in the beautiful Kent countryside, the Garden of England.
And what's your personal reaction to having the princess come here?
I think it is a very great honour for us, and I hope a great opportunity.
May I ask you finally about your own feelings on discipline? Suppose a girl does something that's against the rules, what happens to her?
It depends what the misdemeanour happens to be. We deal with such misdemeanours ad hoc. Usually a talking to in the right way is all that is necessary. Otherwise we deal with it according to what it is.
Have you ever expelled a girl?
Never so far.
The princess has been vocal about the benefits of a boarding school education, and whilst acknowledging that some students may not enjoy the experience, she felt it was the right thing for her. In June 1987, the Queen bestowed the title upon her daughter, Anne, the Princess Royal.
Truth is, you know, there's really only you and them, and it requires an awful lot of concentration. There are certain advantages in being lost in a class of...
Were you nervous? Were you nervous about going to public school?
No, I think I did actually rather quite look forward to it, in many ways.
And how did they treat you? Was there any bullying done? I imagine there wasn't really, knowing you. Or at least being aware of you.
I wasn't that big a girl.
Although the title is honorary, it is the highest honour that may be given to a female member of the royal family. So it was a very significant moment for the Queen to publicly recognise the immense dedication Anne had been applying to her role as a working member of the royal family.
In recent years, both siblings have continued to carry out royal duties, although their focuses have remained distinct. King Charles III became the reigning monarch following the death of Queen Elizabeth II on September 8, 2022. His reign marks a new chapter in British history as he brings his lifelong passions and concerns to the forefront of his kingship. Princess Anne continues to be a highly respected senior royal, known for her commitment to public service and her no-fuss attitude. Despite their different paths, the bond between Anne and Charles remains strong, reflective of their shared experiences as children of a historic monarch.